Cast your mind back to before the last federal election, if you can remember that long ago, and you may recall that promises were made. Specifically, Anthony Albanese promised that if he were to win election, he would hold a royal commission into COVID, looking into all the various aspects of the COVID response. Well, that was quite some time ago, and, the royal commission has not been forthcoming, but good news, we've just had the announcement of an inquiry. Surely that means that Anthony Albanese is making good on his word, and we will have a full and thorough inquiry into all aspects of the COVID response so that lessons can be learned and we can get it right next time. Right? Well, my next guest isn't quite convinced and has released a press release to that effect. It is Senator Malcolm Roberts from the Pauline Hanson One Nation Party. You are a senator for Queensland, and I'm very, very grateful for you coming on the Aussie Wire.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation, Topher. It's always a pleasure to have a chat with you.
Now, your press release caught my eye, but honestly, there has been quite a lot of commentary on this already. This is something that a lot of people are very quick to point out. The terms of reference are a concern, are they not? Can you take us through your concerns and why you felt the need to release that press release?
Well, certainly. I do share huge concerns. I'll make a quote from Dan Andrews. He says, any inquiry into COVID-19 should be forward-focused and not centre on the actions of government during the pandemic. The premiers have rolled the Prime Minister because the premiers have done the dirty work for Scott Morrison. In the media release, I pointed out this is toothless. There's no power to compel witnesses. It's compromised because there's a limited scope. It's federal only. It's a whitewash to protect Labor premiers, as I've said. For example, they raised the topic of international border closures in the terms of reference, but not state. So it's strictly federal. He's running from a royal commission, yet the same man, Anthony Albanese, had a robo-debt royal commission, which was far smaller. Robo-debt was far smaller in cost impact. So he's broken his promise regarding a royal commission on the COVID tragedy, mismanagement, deceit. This COVID, what would you call it? COVID mismanagement was the most invasive and expensive responses in Australia's history. We're still suffering from it. We've got a high inflation. We've got excess of 40,000 excess deaths due to the COVID injections. We've got lingering injuries. This morning I'm at a small business conference back in your old town of Melbourne.
My old town, yes.
and I went to print out my speech just for practicing it. And a lovely lady printed it out for me at the help desk, and I saw that she was walking very awkwardly, sure enough. And this is months and months after her third injection. But there's no doubt. I've got friends at home who've been paralyzed, literally woke up in the morning and they're paralyzed from the neck down. The three people they've appointed to be their reviewers for this panel, it's not an investigation, it's not an inquiry, it's a review. The three insiders appear to be compromised. They appear to be former public servants, and one or two of them look as though they've had lots of grants in the past, and this will be a ticket for lots more grants in the future. So what I'm going to do, Topher, is before the end of the year, as I said in my media release, I'm going to ask the Senate for an inquiry to recommend the Royal Commission terms of reference, because we're going to have one.
Look, we need to. The powers that were seized by governments, state and federal, and the sorts of things that they did, it's quite extraordinary to think that we're going to have an inquiry, but that inquiry in the terms of reference, correct me if I've misunderstood, explicitly excludes unilateral actions taken by a state. And yet during the pandemic, we had now admittedly a different political party, the Liberal Party Prime Minister at the time, Scott Morrison, was sitting there saying, oh, well, the federal government can't do so many different things. It's up to the states. And now that we're having an inquiry, we're excluding the decisions made by the states. Isn't that where the response was, according to the federal government of the time?
Well, I happen to think that the key response was in Scott Morrison, but the implementation was in the premiers. So the premiers hold the can. They did it. They did it. So I agree with you entirely. We've had media criticizing. We've had opposition, which you'd expect to criticize. We've had doctors criticize. I think the front page headlines on the Australian newspaper today, this evening, words to the effect that that medical practitioners have come out against it. So we've got, as you said, the terms of reference include the following areas are not in scope for the inquiry.
Yeah.
Actions taken unilaterally by state and territory governments and international programs and activities assisting foreign countries are not in it. That's pretty much everything they did.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
then you get infectious disease expert Peter Collignan today, and I'm reading from these notes I made for you, told the Australian, a royal commission should examine measures taken to curb COVID infections, including those taken by states, as their utility will not be probed during an inquiry. He said, were lockdowns beneficial? Were border closures beneficial? This is an infectious diseases doctor, stopping people going outside for more than an hour. That is what affected people personally the most, he said. You know, and the people that got on this review, they're not the sort of people who understand what everyday people suffered. They won't understand what you suffered at the hands of that tyrant, Dan Andrews. You know, this is ridiculous. It's just a whitewash to protect Dan Andrews, Anastasia Palaszczuk, and the other Labor premiers.
Now,
McGowan was the other one, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, some people could be forgiven for kind of asking the question, well, Senator Malcolm Roberts and yourself, and if I can mention a few names, we've had some wonderful work from Senators Alex Antic, Jared Rennick, Matt Canavan. Ralph Babet is a recent addition, but he's really making a name for himself and getting stuck in. We've got a handful of really fantastic people who are getting stuck in on this issue. There are other great politicians who are getting stuck in on other issues as well, but just singling it down to this issue, we're seeing a handful standing up, but we're not seeing a lot of results. And some people get very disillusioned. They say, well, you're a politician, fix this. Why can't you fix this for us? We're in a situation now where yourself and a handful of others are saying, well, we need a royal commission. The government is saying you're not going to get one. All you're going to get is this incredibly prejudiced whitewash inquiry. What's to be done from this point forward? You're saying you're going to be calling for a royal commission. You're going to hold a Senate inquiry. What are the mechanisms at your disposal? How do we move forward from here towards what we all want to see?
Well, I'll be asking for the Senate to approve an inquiry to develop the terms of reference. The Senate will give me permission or not give us permission for that inquiry, just as the Senate does on every other request. So that's one thing. I'll be doing some work. We're lining that up at the moment, but doing an inquiry of our own, much the same as we did in March and August of 2021. I think it was, I can't remember, 2022, where we had a multi-party, cross-party inquiry. But this one we'll probably do in-house because it's going to take a lot of getting top experts from around the world, and particularly from Australia, and a whole variety of people, not just experts, but also vaccine injection-injured people. So we're working on those kinds of things. But you might notice that every week in the Senate, I give an update. Two of my staff team are just wonderful on this issue, and we give an update every week in the Senate. We didn't do it last week because we were flat out, but we give an update on the latest things unearthed around the world, and it is startling what's coming out. It is absolutely beyond my most wonderful expectations. So we're really getting there, and we'll put a lot of pressure on these people to come clean, Topher. So we'll just keep the pressure up. We will continue this forever until we get the Royal Commission, until we get the truth out, and until the guilty are punished.
Well, the future is written by those who show up. And Senator Malcolm Roberts, I am grateful that you just keep showing up every day, every week in that Senate, despite overwhelming odds against you at times. And like I said, there are some other wonderful people in there. But you continue to show up and you continue to persevere and you continue to chip away. I tend to share your optimism. I look at what's happening around the world. I do think we are making progress. Sometimes it doesn't look that way, but I do think we are. The narrative has shifted, and the sins of the past are coming home to roost on those who committed them. And it can't come soon enough as far as I'm concerned. Senator Malcolm Roberts, thank you for your press release today. Thank you for continuing to try and hold the federal government accountable. And he is hoping we will see that Royal Commission someday. Thank you for coming on the Aussie Wire.
You're welcome, Topher, and keep going with what you're doing. Aussie Wire needs success for Australia's sake. We need success of the independent new media. Thank you very much for doing what you're doing.